Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, in this video, we're going to finish on the topic of the fi'l al-naqis. But before we talk about the fi'l al-naqis specifically, we need to understand something, which is alamat al-jazm, the signs of al-jazm. Now, al-jazmu is one of the four types of i'rab. So we know that i'rab is a changing that you see at the ending of a word because it's a changing of active elements entering upon it. So Muhammadun becomes Muhammadin, becomes Muhammadan. Why? Because there is an active element like fi, for example, or inna, for example, that's coming and that's changing its i'rab. So i'rab is a change you see at the end of the word because the changing of active elements entering upon it. And the possible changes, the possible endings, the possible i'rab that the word can have is the rafa', which is the original sign is the dhamma, Muhammadun. The nasb, which is the original sign is the fatha, Muhammadan. The jar, which its original sign is the kasra, Muhammadin. And finally, al-jazmu, which its original sign is the sukoon, and it only happens in the fi'l mudara, like yadhabu, for example. Yadhabu is marfu', it has a dhamma at the end. But if I add an active element like lam before it, as we cover, lam makes the verb that comes after it majzumun, so it's going to become lam yadhhab with a sukoon. So that is what al-jazm is. And al-jazm, its original sign is as-sukoon. So alamat al-jazm, the signs of al-jazm, the original sign is the sukoon. But it does have a secondary sign, which is al-hadfu, the dropping. Al-hadfu means dropping or the dropping, if you will. The dropping of what? The dropping of thubut al-noon, or harf thubut al-noon. The dropping of thubut al-noon. Thubut al-noon is the noon that comes at the end of the five verbs. The five verbs are يعني يذهبان, يذهبون, تذهبان, تذهبون, and تذهبين. Those five verbs, yani verbs that are conjugated with those five pronouns, anti and huma, and so on and so forth. Those five there, the sign of it being marfu' is the presence of thubut al-noon, and the sign of it being mansubun or majzumun is the dropping of thubut al-noon. And we covered this before in previous lessons. So that is one sign of jazm. The second sign, the secondary sign, if you will, of al-jazm is hadfu harf al-'illah, the dropping of the weak letter. The dropping of the weak letter. And this is a sign for al-jazm in the fi'l al-naqis. The fi'l al-naqis, which are the verbs that we're talking about right now, the sign of it being majzumun is not going to be the original sign, which is the sukoon, but rather it's going to be the dropping of not the thubut nun, but the dropping of the weak letter at the end of it. So the dropping of the waw in group AU, so yad'u becomes lam yad'u. And the dropping of the alif in group EA, so yansa became lam yansa, we dropped the alif. And the dropping of the kasra, or the dropping of the ya, in the group AE, yabaki became lam yabaki. So the naqis verb and the mudara when majzumun for group AU is going to function like this, for group EA is going to function like this, and for group A is going to function like this. What's common in all of these is that the sign of it being majzumun is the dropping of the weak letter, regardless of whether it's a waw or alif or a ya. And that is what's meant here when we say that alamat al-jazm, the sign of al-jazm is al-hadfu, dropping, the dropping of thubut al-noon in af'al al-khamsa, and the dropping of the weak letter in the fi'l al-naqis, as you can see here. And for all other verbs, excluding the fi'l al-naqis and the af'al al-khamsa, all other fi'l mudara, its sign of jazm is going to be the sukoon. So for example, for verbs like tadhabu, yadhabu, adhabu, nadhabu, and all those verbs I just mentioned that are not part of af'al al-khamsa and they're not a fi'l al-naqis, the sign of it being majzumun is going to be the sukoon at the end of it. So lam tadhhab, lam yadhhab, lam adhhab, lam nadhhab, and so on and so forth. So this is the final discussion, if you will, concerning the fi'l al-naqis, which is very simple. When it's majzumun, the sign of it being majzumun is the dropping of its weak letter, whether it be a waw or a alif or a ya.